Welcome to the Limitless Leaders podcast series brought to you by ASPS, the Aesthetics Society, and the American Hernia Society with the generous support of Allergan Aesthetics. My name is Dr. Ashley Amalfi, and I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon at the Quatella Center for Plastic Surgery in Rochester, New York, and I'm the chair of the ASPS Women Plastic Surgeons Forum and the Limitless Leaders Steering Committee member. Please join us for the Limitless Leaders podcast, where we dive into the stories of extraordinary women making a significant impact in our field, as well as the men who are supporting them to get there. We are breaking gender barriers and inspiring the next generation of leaders.
So welcome. You're listening to the Limitless Leaders podcast series brought to you by ASPS, the Aesthetics Society, and the American Hernia Society with the generous support of Allergan Aesthetics. I'm Dr. Bajaj, today's special guest host of Limitless Leaders. I'm a plastic surgeon in private practice in Oklahoma City, and am the current chair of the Limitless Leaders Summit Steering Committee. The subject for today's episode is society leadership, getting a seat at the table. We have some incredible leaders on today's episode. All of these women are trailblazers in surgery, and I'm going to introduce each of them by name, and then I'm going to allow each of them to elaborate on their leadership accomplishments. As they introduce themselves, I'm also going to ask each of them to say what is their superpower. So, Dr. Gina Adrales is current chief of the Division of Minimally Invasive Surgery at Johns Hopkins and is the first female division chief in the Department of Surgery at Hopkins. She is also director of Minimally Invasive Surgical Training and Innovation Center at the Hopkins Hospital, and associate director of Hopkins Bariatric Surgery Fellowship, and director of Women in Surgery at Hopkins. She is also past president of the American Hernia Society and director of the AHS Foundation. Dr. Gina Adrales, would you like to tell me what your superpower is?
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with all these amazing women. I guess I would say my superpower is I'm a glass half full kind of gal, problem solver. I think that that's a quality that a lot of surgeons share, that we are faced with a lot of, lack of equipment, other resources, and we are able to solve problems, whether that's at home or at work.
Our next speaker or panelist is Dr. Linda Phillips, who is chief of the Division of Plastic Surgery at UTMB in Galveston. She has been a leader throughout her career and is past president of the Plastic Surgery Foundation, as well as the American Association of Plastic Surgeons. And I'm going to allow Dr. Phillips to elaborate more on her leadership accomplishments, as well as her superpower.
So I guess my superpower would be that I don't need a lot of sleep. I am also very positive. Only I like to say that my glass is always 75% full. I have strong backing and support at home, and I tried out my leadership skills taking care of our 4 children along with my husband, who I consider my 5th child. Other leadership positions, I am proud and humbled to have been chosen to be the president of the American Board of Plastic Surgery and the RRC. I've been president of our state society, and also I currently serve as the regent representative for plastic surgery for the American College of Surgeons.
We're also joined with Dr. Mindy Haws, who is the current president of the Aesthetics Society and is the second female president of that society in its 56-year history. Dr. Haws.
Hi, thank you so much, Anu, for the great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with my friends and mentors and all you women that I admire. My superpower is that it never occurs to me that I don't belong anywhere that I am. I've never suffered from imposter syndrome, and maybe it's too high a self-esteem or just being stubborn, but it's really served me well. I was raised by a single mom with three younger brothers, and I never thought there was anything that was out of my reach.
And our next panelist is Dr. Lynn Jeffers, who is the past president of the American Society of Plastic Surgeons and is the first woman of color to be president of ASPS. She is a phenomenal leader. And Lynn, tell us what your superpower is.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm so excited to be here on such a great podcast with so many wonderful people. I guess I'll just list a few things. The past president of ASPS, I'm currently the chair of the International Committee and vice chair excited about the TIDE committee that we have on technology, innovation, disruption, and entrepreneurship. I'm currently the chair on the section on plastic reconstructive and maxillofacial surgery at the American Medical Association, as well as their immediate past chair for their Council on Medical Service. At the state level, I serve on the California Medical Association District 5 Delegation Chair, and I'm currently the Chief Medical Officer of two hospitals, St. John's Regional Medical Center and St. John's Hospital, Camarillo. As far as my superpower, that's a hard one. I guess, it is true. Some people say that I don't need much sleep. My husband will tell you that I do need much sleep. I just don't get much sleep. But I think that for me, when I think about it, it's really about connecting personally with people and hopefully envisioning a future of some vision of something and getting people together to get, as they say, get stuff done. The other part would be adaptability. If COVID showed us anything, it was the people who were agile and able to adapt and deal with uncertainty and ambiguity that really survived this thing the best. So I'd say that. And then finally, just having the support, as Linda Phillips was saying, of my family and many, many other people around me. So those are the ones that I would name.
Dr. Andrea Pusic is Chief of Plastic Surgery at Brigham and Women's Hospital and the Joseph Murray Professor of Surgery at Harvard University. She is a past president of the Plastic Surgery Foundation and the current co-director of the PSF SHARE program, which is Surgeons and Humanitarian Alliance for Reconstructive Research and Foundation. Dr. Pusic, can you elaborate on your leadership accomplishments and what is your superpower?
Thanks, Anu. I've been reflecting on this question about what is my superpower, and I'm going to be honest. I'm not being humble about this. I actually don't think I have one. And I say it also because for anyone listening into this and the aspiring young leaders, young female leaders, I think it's also okay to not have a superpower. And just, I mean, if I had to really stretch, it was not even a stretch. My family, I have a super supportive family. But beyond that, I'm just normal. And I would say the one thing that kind of helped motivates me, which has contributed to success, is I engage around stuff that I feel matters. So my research has been around bringing patient voice to outcome measurement in plastic surgery. And I am proud to say that as a team, we brought that whole thing forward. And I think that plastic surgery is better for it. And as you mentioned about the SHARE program, about trying to increase plastic surgery capacity and access in low and middle income countries, I care deeply about that. So things that I care deeply about, I can engage deeply about, and maybe that somehow that channels some kind of power. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. And Dr. Jennifer Walden is our past president of the Aesthetic Society. She is the first female president in the society's history and is a single mom by choice. Dr. Walden, would you elaborate further on your leadership accomplishments and your superpower?
Hi, thanks, Anu. I am in private practice in Austin, Texas. I have two medical spas here, one in New York City 2 sons and was the first female president of the Aesthetic Society. So I'm honored to be here. And I think my superpower, I've said this on panels before, is probably the ability to multitask. Just with what I just listed, what I've learned to do, I think that's important with multitasking really isn't that that's such a great thing. I've learned to delegate. So that enhances my productivity and I can then focus on what's important. And so most recently in my life, I've just tried to do that a lot more so I can spend more time with my sons because that's the most important thing to me.
Okay. So I'm going to start with a few questions, and I want everybody to participate and speak and put in their 2 cents, if you will. So, Dr. Phillips, you began in leadership when there were very few women in surgery. Forget about women in leadership positions. What 3 assets, qualities do you think allowed you to get a seat at the table and allowed you to be where you are today?
I had some people who believed in me, particularly my program director, and he saw a future for me that I didn't see. So, sometime shortly after I'd started on faculty with him, after finishing residency, he said something about, and when you become division chief, and I'm like, division chief? All I want to do right now is pass my boards. But he saw that and he encouraged it. And as we were discussing earlier, I think speaking up, speaking your mind when you have something substantive to say makes a difference. And then showing up, doing the work, um, being willing and able and a good team player, I think all have a role to play.
So, for those individuals who may not have a program director, how do they seek out a sponsor or mentor, if you will? And this I'm opening up to everybody. Please comment. Yes, Mindy.
Okay, so first, before I comment on this, I just want to say I know what Andrea Pusic's superpower is. It's that she's Andrea Pusic. Everybody knows who she is. Everybody wants to be her. So many people look up to her. She has been such a mentor to so many. She has no idea the effect that she has had on plastic surgery, which kind of ties in. If you look around, there are going to be women and sometimes great men. Like Linda had a great male program director that was a great mentor to her. I had a great male program director and chair that were great mentors to me. So I think you just have to look. And if you're stuck, just look at Andrea Pusic because she's a great mentor.
Mindy, that's kind of you to say. Yeah, that's kind of you to say. I do think though that like if you knew me when I was a family doctor working in the Arctic in Canada and made my way down to New York and followed my husband actually when he moved to Hopkins, I think I've been so fortunate, and yet I feel it's been such a privilege to be part of this whole journey. I do want people, I do want women listening to this to feel that they can do all these things. I think sometimes it is the idea that, well, we have to have something that's like that we are somehow destined to do this. And I will tell you that I'm like probably the least destined to have done the things that I I have had the opportunity to contribute to. So I think I appreciate the words. I think but it's also about being parts of teams, and you're right. But also probably as women, we don't always see ourselves as as doing the things we have done and accomplish them. And I appreciate your kind thoughts. But I want women who are listening to this to feel like they can do this too. It's not, they can do this too. I don't want it to feel like somehow we were like, I went to a no-name medical school.
Andrea, I'm going to ask you, like you say, you're a normal person. and you have achieved this degree of success. So let's hear the story, and then I've got a ton of hands raised of people who are going to comment. But I want to know, how do we share that story?
I think it's like, okay, I'm going to be brief because I want to hear what others have to say. I think it's like by degrees, and it's like you make one decision and then you make a different decision and you make another decision after that. You don't see the whole thing in front of you. I mean, I remember sort of being allergic to research and feeling when I was asked to be on a committee at my little local community hospital as a GP, going like, I do not want to be on committees. That's just not me. So I think it's also about keeping your be open to opportunities, and people evolve over time. And so I'll stop at that because I think it's just my journey has been like it didn't start out like I was launched for success and then it all happened. Nothing. I am the most surprised about where I am right now, actually. So
you would say being open. So
yeah.
Lynn, you have your hand raised next, so I'm going to allow you to speak.
Actually, I was going to say that I think you were asking about mentors at the time that I raised my hand, and I think it's a lot like some of our journeys that we've been talking about, is being open to opportunities. When something presents itself to you, by saying, why not? Taking that little step, and just showing up even is half the battle. So, and opportunities in finding your mentors, but also opportunities in everything else. And you asked about 3 different things, but one of them I would say is, besides the work ethic and following through, I think we can all agree on that. And also asking the why not and thinking outside the box, but also having, for me anyway, it's the integrity and that personal relationship. That you're, at the end of the day, doing the things that you believe in and standing up for the things that you are passionate about.
Yes, I wanted to kind of go back to that original question just and hit on it, because I think that one question you had was, how do you do this if you don't have the program director, or you're in a place where you don't have that exposure? And I just wanted to put a plug in. I know this is ASPS, but I wanted to plug in for ASERF, the Aesthetic Society Educational Research Foundation, has a 2-year-old mentorship program now where we are actually matching students who don't have a home plastic surgery department program, any representation there, with private practice and academic aesthetic plastic surgeons. So visit asurf.com if you're interested in that.
Yeah, and Jen, you're totally right. The more mentor programs that there are out there, ASPS has one called Propel, but they are out there. You just have to look for them.
Thank you. I was just listening to Dr. Pusic, and it really struck a chord with me because I feel like my path is also very similar. I grew up the daughter of, in a family of 4 girls in a very small town in Virginia. And I always thought I would go back and join my dad, who was a community surgeon at the time. And somehow I ended up at Johns Hopkins. And but I think when I think back on it, I remember when I first was interviewing there, I was actually called up out of the blue by Dr. Bob Higgins, who's now at the Partners System or Harvard System. And he wanted me to take a look and form this new division at Hopkins. And when I was there interviewing, I turned to John Efron, who was the vice chair at the time, and I said, why are you looking at me? I'm not sure that I belong here. And he told me, we absolutely need you here. And once I was there, within 2 weeks, I realized that I had things to bring to the table. And it's not that I had imposter syndrome, but it was just that there are so many wonderful people and doing great things there at Hopkins. But I think this speaks to the importance of diversity, that it takes a diverse group, and that means, of all gender and races and ethnicity, to bring something to an organization to make it great. And it's those sponsors or people who see something in you. And it's also the relationships you built along the way. I didn't know Bob Higgins at all, and he told me later that, he would talk to people and then my name would come up. And that's how, you sort of forge a path, and how you pay it back also for others along the way by becoming a mentor and a sponsor to other people.
Mindy, you have your hand raised.
I do. I just wanted to say, I do think a lot of what everybody's saying is the truth. None of us probably plotted our course to be exactly what it is, right? And before I think we started the recording, we talked about that while there's some luck involved in everything we do, there's a whole lot of work and there's a whole lot of preparedness and there's a whole lot of leaning in when you think you might be interested in something, or when somebody asks, saying, sure, why not me? Why wouldn't it be me if somebody asks? So while there was a lot of different reasons we all got to where we are, I'm glad we all are here. But there is definitely a piece of it is saying yes. I'm sure all of us can look back to a point where we could have said, no, not me. I'm not the right person, when actually we were.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I'm hearing is that some of us began this process not 100% convinced or plotting a path, but we were encouraged and we were able and willing and we showed up. And that's what counts as well. So I know Lynn and Andrea have their hands raised, and I want both of you guys to speak, and then I was going to bring up another topic. So Lynn.
This was just a quick one on top of what Mindy just said. Beyond luck, there's that quote that says, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And so we were talking about being ready for opportunities, and part of that is the hard work to be ready when that opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely. I like that quote, Lynn. Andrea.
I just want to echo Gina's comment. I just think, having said that, in terms of sort of not plotting this whole thing, but I think we bring so much, and I say that now as a leader, and I'm looking for new talent and diversity in my teams. Diverse teams we contribute so much, and so again, that's wanting people to step forward, because ultimately I think we're motivated by by the contribution we can make. And I would just say, having different people at the table, and like many women who might otherwise say, oh, I'm not sure how I can contribute, is just so important to the success of our specialty and patient care.
Gina, you have a comment?
Thanks. Yes, thank you. I think it's so, I think that's a very good point. And it's also, you become leaders in a way because you see something, like if we're problem solvers, we see something that's missing and something that in ourselves that can contribute. And, when I started at the American Hernia Society, it was so male dominated, and there were so many comments, like introducing speakers and saying that they're the most beautiful speaker when it happened to be a woman, or, comments like this. And I think, we just work hard. There's a small cadre of us who just saw that and wanted to do more. There were some people who were ready to walk away, and others of us that said, we're going to stick with it and make change. And so last week or so was the American Hernia Society meeting, and I looked around and I was so happy because it was a much more diverse audience from where we started and when I started the diversity, committee. And then while it was still very much male dominated, there were many more women, many more people of color. And during that meeting, we installed the second female president, and there's one more on the way on the executive council. And so, changes like this can take, it certainly takes time, but it's worth it for women to get involved at whatever level, because by having more numbers and more voices, you really can make change happen.
So, Gina, you bring up something that one of our other panelists brought up earlier, is about having a passion for what you do, and that gives you the motivation or the background to pursue leadership. So how do you find your passion? And I'm going to open that, all panelists answer. What is it that drives you? Because that ultimately can be our superpower.
I have to say, for me, it really is actually, I love supporting women. I think that comes just from my upbringing. I'm Asian. I'm sort of introverted. I have 3 other sisters, and a mother who I viewed as quite strong, but was always very humble in what she did, raising us. And there were multiple sort of events through my childhood and life where I felt like I was passed over, and it was merely because I was a girl. And they stuck with me. And so I've always kind of been a fighter, in a way for others. And that's why I lead our women's surgery group at Hopkins. And, at a time where people were stepping away at AHS, I was in a position on the board to make change. And so I, ran with that. And I'm just happy that others were there, men included, who supported that.
It's a hard question, Anu, because it's not like you can go and create your passion. You just have to have that passion. And for me, it's multiple things. Obviously, for the people who know me, I have a passion about policy and advocacy, but also about technology, and then finally about leadership development, which some of you know as well. And for me, it's more of just thinking, how do I make whatever it is I'm doing at that moment, how do I make it better than how I found it? And can we get a bunch of people together and do great, amazing things together? That to me is what's really fun. Many of you've heard the story where at one time when my kids were younger, my husband had sort of indicated that he thought I should stay home more because they were young, and I was away at meetings. So I thought I would stay home and do the right thing, and I was pretty actually darn proud of myself. But then about maybe 6 months or 18 months, somewhere in there, he came to me and he said, I think you need to find yourself a meeting, which to me he was much more insightful than I was, because honestly, I was a little offended at first. I thought I was doing a really good job. But really what it was is that he saw in me that doing this stuff was really part of my passion.
So if it's one of the other questions that both you and I think Jennifer brought up was that you guys don't need much sleep. But if we're talking about work-life balance, it's not, elaborate on how do you survive and how do you keep your cup full so that you can do what you do and do it well.
I think you have to pick what's important, right? You can't have it all at the same time. Was one of the things my mom taught me growing up. And like Jennifer, was a single mom by choice. And it wasn't until she got a little older I got involved in leadership. And actually, my presidency has coincided with now that I'm an empty nester. And so I think you can keep your cup full if you don't try to keep it full of all the same thing all the time. That's hazardous. You got to pick your poison. And sometimes it's the house is not going to get cleaned, and I'm going to have to wait and do laundry next week. But pick what's important and don't sweat the small stuff.
I agree, Mindy. I want to say, I'm going to call it Linda Phillip, and she's heard me say this story. But when I first met her, I think I was a senior resident, and it was a Breakfast of Champions put on by YPS. And I was so amazed because she was a department chair. She had children. She had, she was married, and she seemed like she could do it all. It was the first time that I thought, oh my gosh, you really can have it all. But just like you said, Mindy, and I actually told my husband when I came home, like, I just met this amazing person. And I agree with you, Mindy, though. You just have to make some choices as far as priorities. And my kids know, because of the things that we were doing, we just couldn't be helicopter parents. And maybe in the end of the day, it turned out to be a better thing because they had to be much more independent. And we all have warrior stories about things that we did to our poor children, and they're still alive.
Agreed.
Linda has her hand raised, and then Jennifer.
So one thing that both of us, my husband and I, tell our students, residents, and repeat often is, like you alluded to, Lynn, choose what you can do or want to do, and then we outsource the rest. So we have somebody who comes and does our lawn. We get somebody to paint the house, even though my husband is convinced he could do a better job, but he doesn't like ladders and he doesn't have time. The house wouldn't get painted. When famously I told my mother that I was going to have a cleaning service on a regular basis. She said, well, they'll never do as thorough a job as you would. And I said, Mom, if they clean the house at all, that's better than I'm going to be doing. So we did that. We had nannies. I often worried about what kind of mother I was until my kids were teenagers. And we're, trading barbs back and forth. And one of them said, oh, if Mom had been a stay-at-home mom. And they all looked at each other, appalled, and dead silence. And they said, oh my God, as hands-on as she was, can you imagine if she'd been at home? And then I stopped worrying about that.
Jennifer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's interesting to hear kind of like Mindy and Dr. Phillips talk about how their kids have grown. And I liked, Dr. Phillips had a story of like when her daughter said, I think you said, your daughter said, we don't need a nanny anymore. Like I can get around. And she was like, oh yeah, no, I'm not letting her go. I need her. But I know that I have taken that words of wisdom from her and outsourced and I'm not outsourcing. I'm not a mom in absentia. I'm very close to my sons. I do everything with my sons when I'm not at work. But, as far as like driving to school, picking up from school, cleaning, cooking, all those things, that sort of thing. But it's interesting to be I'm a little bit, midlife mother, 51, with 12-year-olds, because I'm kind of in the middle of it. In that growth that you said, I think Mindy mentioned it, they actually do come out okay. And every year they get a little older and more mature. Just for those of you with young children and you're struggling of like, am I being a good mom? It's so nice to see that maturation process. And I see it every day. My sons are becoming such sweet gentlemen, and I would have never, ever thought it was going to happen. But I just wanted to put in those words that even like doing all the presidency and the practices, but then, you're hands-on because you love them and you're there for them, every night, every weekend. You're not traveling. And one thing I do is take my kids, you probably watch, but I take them overseas with me. I take them on any trip that they want to go on, and I feel like they'll learn on, and that has helped us bond.
Andrea and then Gina.
I just want to say, I think what Linda and Jennifer said, I could not agree more. And it's just, these are really good practical pearls of wisdom. We have two marvelous sons. And the number of times, though, that I worried that I wasn't getting, I almost never made it home for dinner, but I would come in the door and try to be as present as I possibly could be. And they turned out great. And somebody early on, I don't remember who said, like, whatever little bit of money you have, spend it on getting someone to clean the house and help with the kids, and then be present for them when you can be. Do what you can do. What Jennifer's just indicated too. And similarly, I brought the kids back and forth with me on trips and different things. But I think as female plastic surgeons, we just were so used to trying to do everything perfectly. So then we also want to be like the perfect mothers as well. And you can be a great mom. I don't think I have been a great mom, but when I look at my kids, I'm like, something must have worked out, because they are great. We're a great family, but I certainly didn't feel at the time I didn't feel I was doing it as well as I thought I was supposed to do everything. And so just everybody to cut themselves some slack and pay for help, whether it's drivers or house cleaners.
Gina.
Or really beautiful nannies.
Yeah, I totally agree with outsourcing as well. I have a 12-year-old too, and middle school I have to say is tough but rewarding. But I'm very lucky that I have a great supportive spouse, and that helps a lot. And I think in our relationship at various times, there are times where I tried to have my career take a back burner to my husband's, and we moved for him, we moved for me, and it's just worked out in the long run. But I struggle sometimes with this thought of balance because, and having it all, because when it comes down to it, it's really about choice. If I'm choosing at that moment that I have to be in the hospital for this very important meeting, then I'm also not at home. And at other times where I'm choosing, not to go to this meeting because there's an important event in my family, then, I'm also making that choice. And so I also ascribe to sort of quantity at home and quality at work. There are some things sometimes where I do bring my work home, I have to, but I'm still there and we have dinner together. And then folks go to bed and I get to work. And so, I think you just make these choices and it depends and it varies. It's varied through the different ages of my child, too.
Lynn.
I have to agree with what people were saying about um, giving yourself some slack. And we talk about it in our small groups all the time when we talk about you're always feeling guilty, whether you're at work, you're feeling guilty, you're not home, when you're at home, you're feeling guilty that you're not doing something for work, or vice versa. And this really hit home a couple of years ago when I was getting my MBA, and somebody else was in my class who was also a physician. And after hours where we were sitting there, started to talk about these stories, these war stories of the things that we had subjected our poor kids to. And I mean, it was the funniest session, because suddenly I realized, like, we've all done these things that we're going to look back and cringe on, if just not intentional, but just the things that we've done. And at the end of the day, they turn out okay, thankfully. And even my kids are, my son is a medical student. And so I guess we didn't scare him off too badly. But I just wanted to reinforce the idea of giving yourself slack, even though I'm being a complete
So
hypocrite
give yourself
on this one.
grace, right?
Exactly.
I have another question for you guys. So a lot of times, one of the barriers to pursuing leadership is ourselves. Whether you want to call it imposter syndrome, or whether you want to call it a sense that we don't belong or that we're lucky. How do we fight our inner critic?
No, not a secret answer, but what worked for me. There was a particular position that I really wanted, and someone else very well known, who's done a lot in plastic surgery, also wanted that position. And I almost talked myself out of running, because what would happen if I failed? And I thought, what would happen if I failed? Nothing. But if I don't try, for the rest of my life, I'll be regretting that I didn't do this. So I did, and I won.
Bravo.
Yes, bravo. Andrea, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, so part of it, I think what Linda just said is really wise and important, is also the idea of being afraid of failure. Again, my main motivation is always like sort of just I'm not titles don't really interest me so much, but I think doing something that I think is a contribution, I get excited about that. But I'm also like I'm probably not I'm not going to jump with 2 feet if I'm worried that I'm going to fail at something. And so I think that's something is I think as women taking that's just important to say, like, we should also, it's okay to make some intelligent risks in leadership roles and different things. And it may not work out perfectly, but we should give ourselves that chance as well. I will say, just when I was looking at this position in Boston, and I was thinking, no, I've got a good job. I'm totally happy where I am. And it was my husband and my eldest son who said, "Mom, you'd be great at that. This is and I remember that's what gave me pause. So I think it's also sometimes how others around us may see things and think about, and be able to support us in those ways. So it comes from different sources as well. But I think it is important to think about the broader potential that you might have to make change, and know that even if you try, as Linda has just said, and you fail, that's okay, because you tried. And that's what people remember. That's what all the other women, all those residents, all those fellows will look at you and go like, yeah, she gave it a good shot, and that's what's probably most important.
So, the fundamental topic of the talk is, how do you get a seat at the table? And so we've talked about having passion, outsourcing and making sure your cup is filled, having a supportive network, and trying, being available, trying, being open to new opportunity. What other pieces of advice do all of you have for our listeners? Mindy.
I think that even not just the young women listening to this, but middle career, whatever, wherever you are, there is somebody behind you that you can help pull forward. Or there is somebody behind you, like Linda Phillips a few years ago said, why aren't you in the association? You need to apply. Here's the application. Just do it. And if you think I'm not going to do something that Linda Phillips asked me to do, you would be wrong. So, I think that getting a seat at the table, you should pick the table that, like Andrea's talking about, things that you're interested in, that you have passion about. Don't go for an opportunity just because you can get it, but you're not particularly excited about it. Go for those things that you're interested in, you're excited about. You don't want to get bogged down with things that aren't your passion. Go for your passion and look around you and see who else you can boost up with you, because we all stand on the shoulders of giants. But my goal, especially this year as president, and I know Jennifer's was last year, is to pull more people up on my shoulder so that when I step down, there's this whole legacy and this whole tsunami of powerful women behind me. And that's where I will succeed, is if I'm pulling other people up.
I love that. It's one of the things like a few years ago, I started the philosophy that I was only going to do things that gave me joy. And I think when you pursue things that give you joy, you're better at them. So, Linda.
So, one of the reasons I've done some of the things that I've done is because when I was approached to do them, I felt that if I said no, I would be letting down the women behind me. Now, I don't mean the things like you were just saying, that I didn't have passion to do. But if it was something that I had passion to do, even if I was beginning to feel a little stretched, if I didn't take it, it might be several more women who would be passed by because I didn't take it. And I didn't want to do that to anybody behind me. And I do find it a whole lot easier to advocate for those behind me than for myself. So it was a good motivation.
Mindy and then Lynn.
I agree, Linda. I think even when I first got asked to be on the board, and I think Jennifer got on right ahead of me, and I thought, if I say no to this, I wasn't sure I had passion for it. I was particularly interested in it. Turns out I was, but I thought, if I don't do this, they're going to think, see, we knew the women weren't quite ready yet. We'll stick with just Jennifer, and that'll be enough. But I think you're right. Sometimes you have to say yes and at least give it a shot until you can pull somebody else up to take your place.
Lynn.
And I think also, we're talking about not trying to let people down who are coming after us, but that also not only just taking the opportunities, but once you take them, there's this, added, burden is not quite the right word, but you want to make sure that you're doing a good job because you don't want to ruin it for everybody after us. I mean, I think of, I was pregnant during my residency, and I was the first woman who was pregnant during the clinical years. And I thought, oh my gosh, I better not mess this up, and there's so much added expectation there that you put on yourself to do an excellent job. But thanks to all the mentors we have on this call, I think especially when I was president, trying to think of how do we set it up so that structurally and the infrastructure and the processes will facilitate women or other diverse people to be able to be seen and participate. And I think that's probably a responsibility of all of us who do make it to a leadership position.
Andrea.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of what both Linda and Lynn have said. I felt like that just really resonates with me because when it's going to those things that sort of really that I feel like this matters. I care about this. And so with different leadership positions, when it hasn't been the easiest decision, or maybe it was like, gosh, this is going to be hard. I'm not sure I want to do this. But then I have thought, just as Linda said, I'm like, if I don't do this, how many cycles is it going to be before another woman gets a shot at this, right? And what are the opportunities that if I'm in that role that I might do something differently? So I think that's where, just to give ourselves the opportunity to try to step out of those things, but also it's that motivation that we're leading forward for other women, and as Mindy's indicated, like, just, Mindy, what you're doing will be an incredible legacy, because it'll change the specialty, and so I think that those are the kinds of things that I think motivate us.
So, as trailblazers, everyone here seems or sounds as if they are truly believing in the philosophy that we have to empower one another. And by empowering one another, we will ensure everyone's success. So, what's the piece of advice, one pearl that you would give to our listeners? And I'm going to ask each of you to contribute. Mindy.
I think to remember that it's not just one pie. If I do well, that doesn't subtract from the ability of 10,000 women behind me to also do well. So support each other, and then people will be there to support you.
Lynn.
I was going to rethink what I was going to say, but but I completely agree with what Mindy was saying. But I also wanted to add that to remember this is a team sport at the end of the day. So it's kind of a corollary. As one person, we can do a lot of great things, but when you really want to do big, amazing things, and when you really want to lead big teams and accomplish, like, going back to what Andrea said, I don't go for titles so much as what are we going to do in this position. If you want to do that, it has to be a team of people. It has to be a group of people, and those personal relationships and that inspiring people with that follow through and everything else, that's really what makes the big differences.
I completely agree with that. Those relationships that you build and the networks that you form, I think, are so important, not just for getting your initiatives going, but also helping those behind you. I think in the end, what's really important also is just to be true to yourself. You have to really, I think it's been helpful to me to be introspective about what really drives me, what I can improve on, to seek that feedback, just to try to be a better leader, and then to help others with that process too. I think is very important.
I think being a team player, but really, I think it's important when you walk in the room, you're supposed to be there, being confident in yourself. I think sometimes traditionally women have had, especially if you're in a male dominated field, have problems with the self-esteem or confidence in a group of large men, but just keeping an open mind and I had 3 older brothers and my dad, like, just getting along with them, like having an open mind about their thoughts too, and not being siloed is a good idea, I think, or my best advice, at least in my particular organization. And so just being confident in yourself, and you're supposed to be there, so lean into it.
Andrea, and then Linda.
I think you all have said it all and really well. I think I just step up to do things that you care about, that you think matters, that is on your agenda. And then as we just sort of a little bit about, don't go it alone. Whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's engaging other women, working closely with other women has been like the thing that has saved me over and over again in terms of getting things done. So I think just don't go it alone.
So my parents, I should have said earlier on, were my first and greatest mentors, right? So my mother, it was always be true to yourself, believe in yourself. My father, always do your best. But I would say with that, remember that the higher you go, you have great power to inspire others. So as you are doing your passion and doing your best, remember that words of encouragement can make an enormous difference in somebody else's life.
Lynn, can you top that?
No, I almost don't want to speak after that one. But what I was going to say, one other piece of advice was from a leadership perspective. To me, all of this is continuous learning. To me, the fun part is, working with everybody, but also constantly learning, constantly honing your skills, whether it's in the OR or in leadership or whatever it is you're doing. To me, that is key to getting better every day.
Okay, ladies, I appreciate your time. So, are there final words, or does that sum it up? I liked Linda's summary of be true to yourself, believe in yourself, always do your best, and remember the higher you go, the greater power you have to inspire others. It's so true, and it kind of sums up everything we've talked about. But any final words?
I have one. I have one. Her last statement was words of encouragement changes someone's life. Just to put it in perspective, I'm the one she gave words of encouragement to when I didn't know what to do.
Linda, go ahead. You have your hand raised again.
I always knew you could do anything you wanted to do. You just true. I just wanted to say thank you for bringing us all together. This was so energizing to talk with all of you and exchange these ideas, and is so inspiring for our future. Thank you all.
Thank you guys. I mean, as I said, every single person on this podcast is a trailblazer. And I appreciate that all of you took the time and we all found a common date in our schedule to do this. So that concludes our podcast. And thanks all of you. And I can't express my appreciation more. I mean, I am very inspired and I love talking to you guys. So thanks for sharing your expertise with our listeners.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Limitless Leaders podcast series, brought to you by ASPS, the Aesthetic Society, and the American Hernia Society, with the generous support of Allergan Aesthetics. We hope you enjoyed our conversation today and gained valuable insights and inspiration from our guests. Please check out other episodes of your favorite podcast platform. You can download them directly from ASPS EdNet. Stay tuned for new seasons, exciting new episodes where we will continue to celebrate and empower women leaders in plastic surgery and in general surgery. Thank you.